Mr. Governor, Mr. Chief Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it is a matter of gratification that this state is forging ahead with schemes for provision of medical relief, sanitation, and other necessary services. In a vast country like India with a large population, much of it ill-nourished and with ill health, it is more or less inevitable and necessary consequence. We are therefore trying our best to tackle this question from both ends. While on one side efforts are being made to improve the living conditions, to raise the general living standard of our people, which will include also improvement in their health. On the other side, attempts are being made to provide medical facilities and service on as large a scale as we can possibly do in our present conditions. I am therefore happy to learn that in this state you have made good progress already and that deficiencies in the various services are being made good very quickly. In modern medicine for diagnosis, pathological laboratories and also for electric treatment, various kinds of sera are an absolute necessity. It is found by experience that there are several diseases which can be controlled. They have been controlled in other countries and to the extent we have been able to use old methods and facilities. We have been able to control them in our country too. It is therefore essential that each state should have all the necessary equipments for the purpose of supplying the drugs, the sera, and the vaccines which are required for the purpose. I know that in some states we have got up to date and very good laboratories which are doing this work, but as they are not sufficient for this country, you are going in for more by expanding the laboratory here as well as by establishing regional laboratories. In modern days, everyone who goes to a doctor finds that a doctor by himself is not able to diagnose his illness. He needs the help and assistance of a laboratory, and each laboratory requires scientific instruments and other kinds of equipments besides a staff of trained men. Unless all these are provided, the medical facilities cannot be said to be complete, and however good, efficient, and experienced a doctor may be, he will very often find himself more or less helpless in the absence of all these facilities. It is therefore absolutely necessary that these facilities should be provided on as large a scale as medical facilities in other countries are provided, and both for the purposes of preparing sera and vaccines and things of that sort which are required for preventive purposes as well as for curative purposes. We should have large-scale manufacturing laboratories. I am glad to learn that you will become self-sufficient in these respects in a short time, and once you become self-sufficient, you will not have to look to other states for supply of all these materials. But as you have said, you are also deficient in supply of trained personnel. That has also to be provided, and I am glad you are opening new colleges and institutions where young people may be trained. It will, as the Chief Minister has pointed out, take a little time to get these men in their proper places. The medical studies themselves are somewhat prolonged, taking not less than 5 or 6 years in a college, and mere study in a college is not sufficient to make a very good and efficient doctor. He requires more than that, and that can come only through experience. So it will take a few years before you are able to have good and efficient personnel in all your hospitals and dispensaries. But when we are engaged in large scale reconstruction of the country, this kind of delay in inevitable, and all that I can say is that we should be alert and on the lookout for deficiencies to make good, so that before the evil effects of such deficiencies become apparent, we are in a position to meet them. In this country, we have been able to control many bad diseases. I believe plague has been very largely controlled, and I remember the days some more than 50 years ago when plague appeared for the first time in this country and the panic it created. For many years after that, it continued to take a large toll of life in this country. But now we do not hear of plague epidemic. I think that has been brought under control. I believe largely by some kind of vaccination. Malaria is on a fair way to being controlled. That of course is not by injections but by some other means, by some kind of treatment, widespread prevention and destruction of mosquitoes which carry the disease. Similarly, I believe cholera also, whenever it breaks out or shows signs of breaking out, can be controlled and very often brought under control in good time before it can take a very heavy toll of lives. I believe there is a very serious attempt being made to bring even TB under control, and similarly we have got other diseases which are being controlled. Apart from this kind of preventive and curative treatment, our hospitals on a very large scale are catering for the cure of people who fall ill, who are taken seriously ill on account of some disease or other, and in these hospitals as well as in other places curative medicine is very largely used, much of which is still imported. Some of it is being prepared in this country. But an attempt is being made in this country now to establish large factories for the purpose of preparing and manufacturing the latest type of drugs which are now in very common use, although they have come into use during the last few years, and crores of rupees which we have now to spend on importing these, and for which we have to depend upon other countries, will be saved, and I hope in not distant future we shall be able to produce all these drugs in our own country. But it is not enough to have factories and laboratories. These factories and laboratories which deal in such things require a constant research for indicating improvement. It will not be correct to say day to day, but I should say hour to hour, and unless we have got a very efficient body of research workers engaged in research of these drugs in all these laboratories, they will very soon prove to be out of date, and many things which we begin to manufacture will have become out of date by the time our first samples are ready. Therefore, in order to be able to keep pace with the progress of all these things in other parts of the world, we require a very efficient body of research workers who will keep our knowledge, practical knowledge, up to date, and whose knowledge will be available not only for improving things which we manufacture in our country, but also for adding to the knowledge of the country so that we may produce better